Trust is the foundation of a healthy team. And without it, teams lack the tools for constructive conflict, commitment to their goals, mutual accountability, and major results. In this episode of This Meeting Sucks, we are going to walk you through the second phase in our MeetingMakers Framework, building trust. We'll discuss the importance of trust amongst team members and take you through our agenda template centered around work styles, which you can access for free on Session Lab using the link in the description. Like any relationship, you have to cultivate trust. A trusting team is one that thrives in the face of an obstacle.
Welcome, Meeting Makers. I'm your host, Lauren Green, meeting coach and facilitation trainer, here to help you unsuck your meetings one episode at a time. I've helped hundreds of professionals and organizations through leading inclusive, engaging, and productive meetings, and now I'm offering this podcast to help you do the same. Think of this podcast as an ongoing workshop, where each time you tune in, you'll get a bite-sized nugget of knowledge you can apply right away. If you lead meetings or might someday, you're in the right place. Let's make your meetings work.
Picture this. A large corporation has built a 20-person team to support a new branch of products and services within the company. We were invited to facilitate the new team's assimilation and kick off the business unit for success. We could see the nervousness in the participants' faces as they entered the room. While some grabbed their coffee and found a seat next to someone they knew, others immediately sat down, asked for the Wi-Fi password, and began checking their emails. It was clear that not everyone was fully invested in this little activity. If you've ever been asked to participate in team building, you may have felt the same. Maybe you can recount trust falls gone wrong or awkward, forced conversations as a part of a meaningless icebreaker activity. Fortunately for this new team, that was not what our facilitators had in mind. After the leader kicked off, team members were asked to use a template and markers to create a shield that represented activities that they enjoyed and things that others might not know about them. It may seem trivial, but then we asked them to create a team shield that represented their team's core values, things that they would like to accomplish, and how they would like other teams to view them. The result was far from trivial, and participants even wanted a graphic designer to create a team logo that they could print on stickers and mugs. The activity did exactly what it was supposed to do, to give participants a chance to learn about each other on a personal level and feel more connected as part of something bigger, as part of a team. In short, the activity built trust. Trust is the foundation in Patrick Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team model. When teams lack trust, team members hesitate to engage in healthy conflict, commit to shared decisions, hold each other accountable, and deliver results. Without trust, teams fall short of their goals. By prioritizing the cultivation of trust within a team, team leaders pave the way for major results. Your project manager training likely missed this part. You probably learned how to do a budget and make a Gantt chart, but what good is any of that if you can't get your team to work together? Trust is a vague word, but you probably know what it looks like when your team doesn't have trust. Reluctance to speak up in meetings, avoidance of accountability, micromanagement, siloed behavior, lack of transparency, high turnover, poor communication. We could go on, but what does it look like to see a team with trust in action? If you're lucky enough to have experienced this, amazing. But many of you listening may be scratching your heads, and if that's the case, keep listening. We are going to break down this vague word in a concrete way that makes creating it a breeze. First, let's get back to what it looks like when a team has trust. Imagine yourself in the shoes of someone on a high-trust team. You are sitting in a meeting where a decision needs to be made by the group. What are some of the behaviors you might see in this meeting? Likely, you'll observe leaving space for everyone to speak, curiosity about the opinions of others, hearing all ideas before moving to a decision, a clear process for decision-making, apologizing when a misstep or a misstatement was made, appreciation and acknowledgement of each other's ideas, and candid, thoughtful feedback. trust doesn't just happen. It's often the result of natural, organic interactions that enable people to get to know one another beyond the requirements of work. Trust happens when you get up to refill your coffee, encounter a team member along the way, and ask how their weekend went. The move to more commonly remote and hybrid teams has made naturally occurring trust building more difficult. Don't get me wrong, this work trend is great for creating more balance between your work and life needs. But at the same time, not having a co located team means that we have to, in some ways, manufacture trust in our teams a bit more. In the last episode, we covered building a team charter, which is one activity that you can do to build a foundation for trust. Talking about team operating norms before the team gets started sets the expectation that everyone is responsible for upholding the agreements made as part of the charter. If you haven't listened to that one yet, be sure to check it out. Put very simply, to build trust, team members need to get to know one another. That's it. This can be as simple as a brief check-in at the beginning of your weekly tag-up or doing an occasional energizer or icebreaker with your team. We love Jan Keck's Ice Melters library, which we'll link to in the description, along with a few blogs on our favorite group energizers. Any activity where team members have the opportunity to experience one another and get to know each other outside of their work requirements is an opportunity to build trust. The activity that we're going to focus on in this episode centers around work styles. It's a very simple exercise that enables team members to highlight their preferences across a range of work-related situations. For example, do you prefer to work through decisions on your own or work with others? Or do you prefer to meet in the morning versus in the afternoon? Imagine what this type of knowledge might do to the team dynamic. Of course, you can't please everyone, but simple awareness around preferences helps you and your team acknowledge and regard each other with greater understanding. This understanding can build into respect that fuels trust. After the break, we'll walk you through our agenda for building trust and give you tips for helping your team get to know each other both as individuals and as a united collective. You can find our free session lab template linked in the description, along with our mural online whiteboard or printer-friendly poster templates available for purchase. Team retreats, strategic planning offsites, or problem-solving meetings can benefit from having a third-party, neutral facilitator who is focused on the process of the meeting rather than the content. Our team of expert facilitators takes the burden of designing your meeting and navigating group dynamics off your plate so you can participate, offer your ideas, and support the group in carrying the action forward. Working with us as your expert facilitators will help you to maximize the potential of your team to do their best work, create space for innovation and forward thinking, and host annual retreats that will have a lasting impact even after you get back to the office. If you love this podcast and want to work with us as your expert team, visit makemeetings.work/contact to partner with us and make your meetings work. So this agenda is about a day long. We've got it timed from 9 to 4 with a 1-hour lunch break at noon. But you can certainly change the time and or remove activities in order to make this work for the time that you have. It also really pairs up well with the team charter activity that is in the previous episode. So you may want to do the team charter activity and then maybe do the team profile activity after that. You can kind of mix and match both. After your normal welcome and kickoff and review of the agenda, perhaps some introductions in case there are new members of the team who need to get to know each other, we start our day with an energizer. We love the energizer 2 Truths and a Goal, which we learned from Jan Keck on the Ice Melters library. This energizer in total should take about 15 minutes, but it might take longer if you have a team of more than 8. The purpose of 2 Truths and a Goal is for team members to get to know each other and encourage support for mutual goals. You have individuals write down 2 things about themselves that others might not know, and a goal that they have in their work or home life. Then each person takes turns sharing, and as an option between each person, ask if anyone has anything in common with that person. Take note of any areas in common that the team has. After our opening energizer, we go through a personal profile. This is similar to the shield exercise that we mentioned in the story, but we're offering it here as a profile instead of a shield because we think that a profile will resonate with a more diverse team and or group experience. The purpose of a personal profile is to share with others on your team what makes you unique and to help everyone get to know each other on a more personal level. In total, we've given about 50 minutes for this activity, but it could take more or less depending on the size of your group. We've provided a personal profile template that you can purchase, or you can simply make your own. The prompts that we like to include on this template, or you can think of it as a worksheet, are accomplishments that I'm most proud of, one thing that most people don't know about me, which can be something that they just used in their Energizer. If I weren't doing this job, I would. 3 things I'd like to accomplish this year are, and my personal motto or theme song is. So you have those prompts. Again, you can use our template or you can make your own worksheet, and you give participants about 20 to 30 minutes to work on that, and then everyone shares. If you have a large team, maybe more than 15 people, you might do this as a poster walk. So everybody puts their templates up on the wall instead of a share out. And then you can invite people to roam around, view each other's work, and maybe leave notes of admiration on sticky notes around the room. And this is a little bit faster than everybody sharing out, especially if you don't have enough time. After this, we suggest taking a short break. If you're online, you can get away with 10 minutes, but if you're in person, we suggest 15 or 20. The main activity of our agenda is called Where Do You Stand? And it's a work styles activity. The purpose of Where Do You Stand is really to enable team members to safely share their work preferences and then reflect on the dynamics that individual styles and preferences create in the team itself. We're going to first go through instructions as if you were doing this in person, but then we'll also give you some tips on how you can do this online as well. As with any activity, we recommend starting the activity with why you're about to do it. So you might want to note that this activity is aiming to highlight individual preferences so that we can reflect on the dynamics of the team as a whole. And then you should also note that each side of the room will represent opposite sides of a spectrum. And participants will go to the side that they feel represents their preference for each prompt. It's also important to note that it's okay to be somewhere in the middle. We don't expect for this to be a polarizing activity, so you want to emphasize up front that there is no wrong answer. And then we recommend doing a test prompt. For instance, when it comes to vacation, if you're more of a beach person, go to this side of the room and then gesture which side they should go to. And if you're more of a mountain person, go to this side of the room. And if you're kind of somewhere in the middle, you can spread yourselves out. Give people a minute or two to find where they want to be, and then you start a reflection. Start with the side of the room that has the fewest number of people on it. We do that on purpose because we want to give the side that has fewer people a little bit more voice and representation. We might start by asking, what made you go to this side, and what would you like others to know about you? You get a few responses, and then you go to the other side of the room and say, let's hear from a few people on this side of the room. What made you pick this side? What's important for us to know about you? And then you go to the middle and say, from a few people in the middle, why did you choose where you did? And then at the end, once you've got a few responses, you want to ask something like, knowing everything that we just heard about our team, what might we want to keep in mind when it comes to, and then insert a work situation, like our team meetings, for instance, or the way we tackle a customer intake process. Again, just to repeat, once people are spread out, start with the side with the fewest people, then the other side, a few in the middle, and then reflect as a whole. As a bonus, and to make this exercise really valuable, you could then ask, is there a team norm or rule that we want to create based on the conversation? And you would hope that people will say things like, we want to make sure that we always respect everybody's views and assume noble intent. Things like that. It'll come up naturally. Write everything on a flip chart, and the team can wordsmith and vote on everything later. And then it's a rinse and repeat. We recommend giving about 5 to 10 minutes per prompt and do as many prompts as you have time for. Here are a few prompts that you can use, which are more team oriented. When it comes to your best energy for getting work done, are you more of an early bird or more of a night owl? When it comes to where you prefer to do your work, would you rather work from home or work in the office or in person? Now, you can imagine with that one, if you invite people to come up with some team norms, that they may end up coming up with some situations like we want to have one meeting a month in the office. And those are the types of things that you want from this because it can help to take the conversation and really make it actionable. Here's another prompt. When it comes to project planning, do you like to plan tasks in advance or plan tasks as you go? And that may create some understanding if you have a lot of people who end up on the planning in advance and one person on the plan tasks as you go. You might want to ask the people who said they like to do things in advance how it feels to be on the other side. So you're developing some empathy on the two sides. Here's another prompt. When it comes to your interactions with others, do you consider yourself more reflective or more outgoing? And with this one, recommend not starting with the people who kind of fall on the reflective side. They tend to not want to be put on the spot right up front and want to think about what they want to say. I'd always start with the people who tend to be more outgoing. But again, there's an opportunity here to create some empathy. If you have a group that has a lot of outgoing people and maybe only a couple reflective people, and a handful in the middle, you might ask the outgoing people, knowing what you know now, are there some things that we could do differently to make space for people who are more reflective? Some of you may have noticed that I'm using the word reflective instead of introverted because there's a lot of stigma attached to the words introverted and extroverted, and they're starting to get a little misused. So instead, I like to use reflective and outgoing because both of those words really have a positive connotation. So there's less judgment attached to those words. Couple more prompts for you that you can consider using. When it comes to conflict, do you tend to relish or thrive in conflict, or are you more conflict averse? This is a really nice one because wherever the team falls, it might give them some data about how they tend to manage conflict. So you could find yourselves coming up with some team agreements about how might we as a team work through conflict knowing what we know now. If you have a lot of people on the team who are conflict averse, maybe they need to be able to visualize and mind map out the conflict. Or if you've got a whole bunch of people who relish conflict, but only one person who feels conflict averse, that's an opportunity to say, hey, if you relish conflict, but notice Joe over there who tends to be a little bit more conflict averse. Are there things that we could do differently in our conversations to cater a little bit more to his style? The idea here is, as much as possible, not to create polarities, but to get one side to try to understand the other and to use your questions to do that. I highly recommend going back and checking out our podcast episode on verbal tools, which we'll link to in the description, because we do include a lot of different ways you can form questions, and it's really important for this activity that you have some good questions in your back pocket. One of the last prompts that I'm going to give you is, when it comes to problem solving, do you prefer to work through problems on your own, or do you work best when working through problems with others? This was a nice one because if you have a team dynamic where there's a few people who tend to go off and do things on their own and others on the team aren't liking that, then this allows a productive conversation without really having to call out that behavior specifically. We can simply notice, oh, some people like to solve problems on their own, but others of us like to work with others. when we're doing problem solving, how might we as a team make sure that we are accommodating each other in our different needs, and see what they come up with. People will come up with amazing things without you having to put words in their mouth. Those are some of the prompts that we really like, and it is really important to have a constructive conversation where we agree on behaviors and agreements as a team that we want to put into place. So, to do this online, it's really simple. You can use an online whiteboard tool with a visual of a double sided arrow that's long enough for participants to move stickies to their desired location. So, instead of walking to a part of the room, they're moving a sticky note on an arrow. And there can be multiple arrows, one for each spectrum that you're going to use. And you want to give each person a virtual sticky note with their name on it, or you can give blank sticky notes and have them add their name. What I like to do is create a set of sticky notes that's off to the side with pre-populated names. So for each round, I can copy and paste a new set of sticky notes without losing the past rounds that we just did. This activity can take a little while, so we've given it 75 minutes to do it really well. But if you don't have that much time, you could always shorten it and just do fewer prompts that you think are the best for your team. After lunch, we're going to offer you an energizer to get people's energy back up. And this is called your most successful team. The purpose of this is to share and align around what makes a team work. And it's very simple. You invite everyone to think of a successful team that they've been on and what that was like. And then you invite them to individually write down a few key qualities about the team that enabled its success. For example, the communication was always respectful. Now, if someone says, I've never been on a successful team, then you can simply invite them to consider what it would look like if they had been. So for about 2 minutes, you ask individuals to pick their top 1 or 2 qualities and write them on sticky notes, 1 per sticky note. And then for about 5 minutes, you have individuals work in small groups and share, where they will then consolidate to their top 3 or 4 qualities as a team. Then you can have each team share out their sticky notes and post them on a wall or a whiteboard, aiming to cluster similar ideas together. Then you have a reflection, so you could ask, what themes do you notice? You could also ask, when it comes to our team, what would you hope that future team members would say? You could also ask, what can we bring from this into our team? And then write down some of those key insights on a flip chart. The last activity that we're going to do takes about an hour and a half, and this actually builds on the personal profile that you had started earlier in the day. The idea here is to summarize insights from the personal profile into a team profile in order to build team pride and for people to really feel connected. So for this, again, in our templates, we have a team version of the profile that you can use. And this team profile has slightly different categories in it, and these categories can be modified to suit your team's unique needs. For example, the categories that we use in our template include a mascot that represents our spirit, our team motto, accomplishments we've had as a team, accomplishments we would like to have as a team, things that make us unique from other teams, and finally, we approach our work with and then add values or other things that are important to the team. What we recommend is create a flip chart for each of those categories and place them around the room, and then invite participants to float around the room and add to each chart. You can do this a couple of ways. You can either ask them to roam around the room, you've got 30 minutes, make sure you hit every chart and add to that category, or you can have people work in small groups and spend about 10 minutes per chart working on it and then rotate. You want to encourage participants to review what has been previously written rather than duplicate, and then add a +1 to anything that they agree with. After all the participants have visited all the charts, you invite participants to vote on their top 3 things that are written on each chart. And then for in-person, you could ask for a couple of volunteers, one with really good handwriting and maybe one brave enough to draw, who can help create the team profile. Alternatively, if you run out of time, creating the team profile could be done after the fact. But we recommend following this activity with a break, because during the break, the top ideas from each chart could be transferred onto the team version of the chart with the help of your volunteers. Now, for the online version, you could do this in an online whiteboard and do an internet search for your team mascot instead of having to draw it. After the break, we've got about 30 minutes to review the team profile and do feedback. First, thank the volunteers for their help and reveal the final profile, and then invite some reflections. What do you like about this profile? What is it missing? What would you like to see happen with it next? Add any stickies with feedback to the chart or the board, depending on where you're working on it. And then ask for volunteers to assist with suggested next steps if needed and capture these next steps in a visible way. You might not finish this if you run out of time, but hopefully you have enough time to do a little bit of reflection and feedback, and you can create a next step for volunteers to firm up the team profile after the event. As a final reflection, we really like leave behind and taking with you. And the purpose of this exercise is to summarize key takeaways and really cement the experience. Give individuals 1 minute to write down one thing that they are leaving behind after the session, and then one thing that they're going to take with them, as in a key takeaway. Invite each person to share, with the leader going last. Then we've got about 5 minutes for the leader to share appreciation and clarify next steps. Now, if you grab our Session Lab template, we've got some additional scripting you can check out. Again, if you do not want to have to create any templates yourself, you can buy ours. The last thing we'll say is that if you wanted to pick one thing to do out of this agenda instead of doing the whole thing, you can definitely do the work styles activity on its own. Whether you're a part of a brand new team or have been working together for years, trust is essential to keeping conflict constructive, decision-making a breeze, and accountability possible. Trust doesn't have to be hard, but it does take intention and effort to cultivate and maintain. In the next 4 episodes, yes, 4, it's that important, we'll discuss the next stage in our framework, getting aligned. In the meantime, go ask your teammate about their weekend, show some appreciation, and make your meetings work. This podcast was written by Lauren Green and produced by Caitlin Murray. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a few seconds to rate and review so future meeting makers can find our community. Be sure to join the conversation in our Meeting Makers Facebook group. You can find our next Meeting Makers Academy workshop on our website at www.makemeetings.work/academy. Want help with your next meeting? Reach out at makemeetings.work/contact and we'll set up time to chat.